How do you make phone calls and set appointments that people actually show up to, where you can help them buy a vehicle or give yourself an opportunity to gain a new client and sell a car? So in this video, what I'm gonna be talking about is how do you make that prospecting call one that's memorable, one that seems non-invasive, and one that allows you to be able to gain information, share information, to be able to set that appointment and have that customer actually show up so that you can help them. So let's think about this. Number one, most people making that outbound phone call is the last thing that they ever want to do, okay? It's probably the most despised thing that most salespeople deal with at their dealership. I've seen tons of new people actually quit because they had no idea that it was that much outbound telephone calls involved in the actual position. But let me talk about something real quick. First things first is when we talk about telemarketing, okay, it's looked at in a very negative light, when in reality, anytime that you're on the phone with somebody and you're discussing business, product, or services, you are marketing your services over the telephone. So that's telemarketing. But we're not talking about in the traditional sense where you just open up a white page, just flip through to a name, and you say, I'm gonna call this person and see if they're willing to buy one of my vehicles. Not that, okay? Most of the information as far as the leads go that you have are people that either went online, came into the store previously, maybe was in the service department, or maybe their service warranties are getting ready to expire, okay? So these are what you would call warm to hot leads. But even with those, it requires a certain set of skill when you're making that outbound phone call to engage them on the phone, not come across salesy, and get them to open up and be willing to ask you any questions that they may have, for you to be able to share any information that may be beneficial, and ultimately set a time and a day to have that person come in so that you can both put eyes and hands on a particular option that may be best suited for them. But how do we do that? First things first, when you're making that outbound phone call, most salespeople start the outbound phone call off very wrong with less that gives the alert, salesperson. First things first, when you make the outbound phone call, even though on your lead form it has a first and a last name and certain other pieces of information, when you're making that outbound phone call, you always want to ask for the person by first name, because when someone that's familiar with an individual calls them, very rarely, if ever, do they use their first and their last name. So you want to call and ask for them by first name. Secondly, once they, give they say that it's them, or, you got the right person, or they get the right person on the phone, you immediately want to go into who you are and what your reasoning is for the call. Because once you ask for them by first name, now their mind is racing saying, do I, and then you give your name, their mind will be racing saying, do I know this person? And you don't want them to spend their time trying to figure out who you are for too long, because they'll miss out on some of the questions you may have. So you want to address who you are, where you're calling from, and then the purpose of your call, the reason why you're calling. Then after that, what you want to do is you want to let it be known to them that you're there to be able to answer any question that they may have, provide any information that they may be looking for, okay? So the way that will go is you may go, ring, ring, hey, may I speak to John? This John, this is Brian Maxwell calling from Roundtree Moore Toyota here in Jacksonville, Florida. John, the reason for my call is that some information came across my desk that John Lewis was looking for information regarding the 2020 Toyota Tacomas. Am I speaking with the right John? Okay, now it's just a confirmation. Well, yeah, this is him. Well, John, the reason for my call is just to answer any questions that you may have, provide you with any information you may be looking for. So, John, what questions do you have for me, or what information would you like for me to get for you? Now, at this point, it turns the call from one that could have seemed salesy into one that's all about calling to give help, to be of servitude to that guest, okay? And so any questions that they may have, any information that you have to share, you want to do that. If they ask about a price, remember, when customers ask for a price over the phone, you're taught by your managers, it's probably drilled in your head, you never give a price over the phone. But here's the issue. When we're unwilling to give what they're asking us for, now we want to ask them to do something like come in, and we expect them to be willing to trust and listen to us when we totally ignored them. Doesn't really work out that way, which is why you want to always be prepared. If you know that you've just received a lead and it has a specific vehicle that they want information on, especially if it's a new vehicle, you want to always find out what your pre-owned option pricing is on that particular model, and then what your highest end or your highest trim level pricing is on that particular model. That might take you a couple of minutes right before you make that phone call. But when you make your phone calls, you want to make sure you have as much information that you possibly can prepared and ready. So not really knowing what question they may ask, that's fine. But we do know that how much it is may be a question that they may have. So you always want to at least have that one prepared. Okay, so when they do ask you for that price, remember, as opposed to giving out a specific number, give them a range. Okay, so yeah, I was checking to see what type of pricing or deals you guys had on the Tacomas there. Well, that's a good question. And John, I have them ranging from 17.3 all the way up to 42.5. So to help us narrow it down and to find out which one is going to be the best option for you, most people like to come in and lay their eyes on it, put their hands on it before they make a decision. So I have an opening this morning at 10 or one this afternoon at 2. Which one of those are going to work best for you to come on in to be able to take a look at what we have? Okay, so again, you're flipping it back to, you gave them the range. You answered that question. So instead of stonewalling like a lot of other salespeople do, we've actually answered it. We gave them a range. And it's a fact that to help us narrow it down to identify which one is going to work best for them, most people do like to come in and put their eyes on it and put their hands on it. So that's a factual. Remember something, I never believe in lying, but I do believe in breaking the truth down to its basic fundamental element, which is before a person makes an educated decision, they typically want to have the information, okay? And the information is bigger than just pieces of paper. It's actually the site and the field test too, which is why demo drives and things like that are so important and so critical, okay? So when you're making your outbound phone calls, remember, ask for the person by first name, okay? And then once they say, this is him, okay? You want to introduce yourself, who you are, where you're calling from, what city it's in, because you don't know how many dealerships they may have called that are in your city, in your state, or some in surrounding cities, or even in other states. You'd be amazed how often somebody has to go out of state to get a vehicle. Is that a shame? Yeah, because there's no reason people from your backyard you have to go someplace else to be able to get what they're looking for when you have it there. But always make sure you give your name, what city, and what dealership you're calling from. And then you just want to let them know the reason. Hey, some information came across my desk that John Lewis was looking for some additional information on the 2020 Toyota Tacomas or Ford Mustangs or Ford F-250s or whatever it is, okay? Now, and then you want to confirm, am I speaking to the right John, okay? So now we're setting up yeses also. And now after that, just let them know. So John, I'm just here to answer any questions you have or provide you any information you may feel that you'd like to have. So what questions do you have for me, or what information would you like for me to get for you? And remember, not knowing what questions they're going to ask, we've never spoken to this person before. We do know one that may come up, that typically does, and that is price, okay? So you want to just, especially if it's a new vehicle, you want to find out what your pre-owned option, your lowest pre-owned option in that particular model is, and then what your highest trim level option is, and what the pricing is on those both, and give a range. If they're calling just about a specific pre-owned vehicle and they ask for the price, you still give them the range, because guess what? The pre-owned option, you give them that number, but you also have the higher trim level model. If it's a pre-owned option that you all have that is not of your particular brand, and they call and they say, well, yeah, I'm looking for the, you guys had a 2017 Mercedes on the lot, and I'd like to get some information, some pricing, what your pricing is on that. Awesome, and that's a good question. So as opposed, John, just to giving you, basic pricing, I really would like to be able to give you the best option we have on it, okay? So I'm gonna ask you a few questions. We'll set up a time for you to be able to take a look at it, and we'll see what it is, what the best options are we have for you. So if they have that one specific pre-owned vehicle that is not of your particular brand, okay, and they're asking for pricing on that, they want to know what it is. And that way to handle that is, hey, listen, as opposed to just throwing you out a price, I want to make sure that I give you the best option available that we have. So I just want to ask you a few questions. Then after that, set up a time for you to be able to take a look at it, just to make sure that this is the right one. And then I'll be able to make sure that we don't just give you price, and we give you the best options that we have available. Is that fair to you? Boom. Okay. So making those outbound calls, remember to make it natural, make it smooth. And if you're looking for more word tracks and better ways to be able to do that, click the link in the description. Go on over and check out. I got some awesome tools available that will help you be able to master making those phone calls, leaving those voicemails, sending out emails, and most importantly, taking your customer from A to Z, straight line through the process. So click the link in the description. Go on over, check out the tools. I'm Brian Maxwell.